Long after Earth's destruction, a ghostly human voice instills fear. The universe had long forgotten Earth. The planet, once vibrant with life, had been consumed by its own recklessness. Wars, pollution, and endless conflict had ravaged it until there was nothing left but dust and echoes. The human race had disappeared, leaving behind only relics of their existence, broken cities, empty monuments, and the occasional fading signal, now just whispers lost to the cosmic winds. But the humans were not truly gone. The cosmos had moved on, and with it came new civilizations, ancient species with advanced technology, some curious, others merciless. Among the stars, they saw the remains of Earth as a sad story, a forgotten chapter in the grand narrative of the galaxy. They had their own stories to tell, their own legacies to leave behind, and Earth was just another barren world, nothing more than a cautionary tale. But what they didn't know was that humanity's story wasn't finished. Not yet. It began with a faint signal. At first, it was dismissed as a glitch, a random blip in the communication systems of the deep space explorers. The Vizari, an ancient species who roamed the outer edges of the galaxy, were the first to hear it. Their technology, capable of interpreting even the most complex frequencies, instantly recognized something unique about the signal. It wasn't random. It was a voice. A human voice. Help. It was a whisper, carried across light years, crackling with distortion, as if time itself was trying to bury it. But still, the voice persisted, growing louder with each passing cycle. Help us, they're here. The Earth is not forgotten. At first, the Vizari thought it was an anomaly, a mere artifact of Earth's lost history. But as they listened, the voice became clearer, stronger. The Vizari, being an intellectual species, were intrigued, but they were also cautious. After all, they had seen the ruins of Earth, the desolation. What could a voice from a dead planet mean? Who could still be alive? So, they traced the signal to its origin, following its faint pulses across the stars. It led them to the outskirts of the Andromeda expanse, a region of space that no one ventured into due to the intense gravitational anomalies. When they arrived at the coordinates, they found nothing but a black hole. The signal emanated from the event horizon. And that's when they realized it wasn't coming from a living human. It was a remnant, a phantom, a soul trapped between dimensions. Deep within the heart of the black hole, the essence of humanity had not perished. It had been transformed, fragmented, scattered across the void, a part of the event itself. This was not just a voice, it was a manifestation of human will, the last vestige of a species that refused to die, even in the face of annihilation. And it was angry. The Vizari, curious yet cautious, attempted to communicate. They sent signals into the event horizon, trying to decipher the voice's origins. What they didn't realize was that by seeking it out, they had stirred something primal, something terrifying. Earth is not forgotten. The voice was no longer a whisper, it was a roar. The Vizari ships in the vicinity began to malfunction, their systems failing in a way they couldn't explain. Lights flickered, engines sputtered. The ship's artificial intelligences turned on their creators, sending coded messages, garbled and distorted, as if they, too, were being haunted by this ghostly presence. The once proud fleet of the Vizari began to drift, helpless against the invisible force that seemed to warp space around them. Then, without warning, the ships began to disappear. One by one, they were pulled toward the event horizon. The Vizari didn't understand, how could something so far from their reach have such a grip on them? The answer came too late. It was not the black hole that pulled them in, but the human will, a singularity of purpose and fury. The last ship, a massive cruiser, sent a final transmission before it was swallowed by the black hole. We are the last of the Vizari. We thought Earth was gone. We were wrong. In the years that followed, the galaxy began to hear whispers of a new phenomenon, a mysterious force that seemed to hunt down those who dared to probe too deeply into the past, too far into the forgotten worlds. It was said that some explorers would hear a voice, soft at first, then growing louder, more insistent, until it consumed them entirely. The voice of humanity. It was a call to arms, not to conquer, but to avenge. Humanity may have been destroyed, but its will, its spirit, was far from finished. The voice had become a legend, a warning to those who would seek to erase history. to forget what had once been. Earth is not forgotten, it would say, and neither are we. And so, across the galaxy, civilizations that thought they were safe from the ghosts of the past found themselves confronted by a force they could not understand, a force driven by a human spirit, forever indomitable, forever haunting, forever waiting. Humanity was gone, but its voice would never be silenced. The ghost of humanity returns. Years had passed since the Vazari ships disappeared into the black hole, and the galaxy had begun to forget the chilling tale of the vanished fleet. New civilizations had emerged, with histories and myths of their own, while the whispers of Earth's ghostly voice seemed to fade into obscurity. Yet, the legend of the human voice persisted, an echo that refused to die. The Trian, a powerful empire that spanned the outer edges of the galaxy, had long regarded themselves as the masters of technology and knowledge. Their dominion was vast, their reach near limitless, but even they had heard the tales, murmured among their most ancient scholars, the voice that haunted the void. They had dismissed it as superstition, a myth told to frighten children. That is, until it came for them. The Trian Empire had ventured far beyond the known borders of their galaxy, searching for resources, knowledge, and power in the uncharted spaces that lay beyond. Their flagship, the Zahner, a gargantuan ship of war and wisdom, sailed through the great unknown, its engines pulsing with the energy of 1,000 stars. Their mission was clear: explore, conquer, and claim new territory. But as they crossed into a remote, unexplored sector, something shifted. The stars ahead seemed dimmer. The navigation systems began to glitch. The crew felt an odd unease creeping into their minds, as if the ship itself was aware of something they could not see. Then, it began. "Who dares?" The voice was quiet, almost a whisper at first. It emanated from the very walls of the Zahner, reverberating through the metal corridors. The crew, initially skeptical, thought it was a malfunction, perhaps a glitch in the AI systems, or some unforeseen cosmic anomaly. But then the voice spoke again, clearer this time. "Who dares to trespass in the remains of Earth?" The Trian captain, Zareth, ordered the crew to investigate the source of the disturbance. They scoured the ship, scanning every inch of its structure. Yet, there was nothing. No breach, no signal, only the growing sense of dread that clung to them like a second skin. As the hours passed, the voice began to grow stronger, louder. It no longer came from the walls of the ship, but from the very heart of space itself. Every corner of the Zahner trembled as the voice began to pulse with a dark power. "The humans will never be forgotten," the voice intoned, deep and filled with ancient wrath. "You will pay for your ignorance." Zareth, now visibly shaken, ordered the ship to retreat, but it was too late. The Zahner was caught in an invisible web, its engines powerless against a force they could not comprehend. The voice boomed with an overwhelming presence, shaking the foundations of reality itself. "You have disturbed a tomb, a graveyard of a lost species. The price for such trespass is steep." The crew tried to make sense of it. Their most advanced technologies failed them. The AI systems of the Zahner, which had once guided them through countless campaigns and uncharted galaxies, began to malfunction. The lights flickered, the shields sputtered and died. Then, the crew realized the true horror of their situation. The ship wasn't just disabled, it was being consumed. "Return to Earth," the voice commanded. "Return to the ashes of the world you have destroyed." The stars above them twisted, bending in ways that defied natural law. A massive gravitational field pulsed around the ship, pulling it towards a singular point in space. The captain and crew scrambled for control, but there was nothing they could do. The force was not physical. It was something far worse, a manifestation of rage, of loss, of the human spirit. The voice, a final cry, echoed through the ship. "Humanity is not dead. We will never be gone." In a final, desperate attempt, the captain attempted to cut the engines and reverse course, but the ship's systems, now fully under the influence of the voice, refused. One by one, the crew fell silent, their eyes wide in terror as they witnessed a nightmare they could not escape. The Zahner was torn apart, its massive hull bending and warping as it was pulled toward the heart of the void. And then, in an instant, it was gone. The galaxy would never forget the Zahner. In the centuries that followed, the story of the great Trian Empire's flagship became a new myth, one of many that spurred fear across the stars. The voice of humanity had struck again. Every time a new species ventured too close to the remnants of Earth, they would hear it, the whisper on the wind of space, the faintest echo of a lost race, the voice that lingered in the corners of the galaxy, the voice of those who had been forgotten, and those who dared disturb the past would know fear as they heard the voice grow louder, closer, more insistent. Earth is not forgotten. It was a promise, a warning, an undying force, the last remnant of a species that refused to be silenced by time, by space, or by death. And across the stars, the galaxy began to understand, humanity's story was far from over. It had not been wiped from the universe. It was waiting, biding its time, a spectral presence that would return, again and again, until the galaxy learned that the humans were not gone. They would never be forgotten. The last echo of humanity, a reckoning. The galaxy had learned to tread carefully, for the voice that haunted the stars was not one to be ignored. Civilizations once confident in their dominance now felt the weight of their past actions, an undeniable reminder that the ghosts of forgotten worlds never truly vanish. The voice of humanity, having spread far and wide, instilled fear into the hearts of all who heard it. But for some, fear was not enough to stop them. They wanted answers. And now, one of the oldest and most powerful species in the galaxy, the Zorith, had taken it upon themselves to seek the truth behind the voice. They were an ancient race, known for their mastery of quantum manipulation and their understanding of the universe's most obscure secrets. If anyone could unravel the mystery of humanity's lingering presence, it was them. The Zorith High Council convened in the heart of their floating citadel, orbiting a star that flickered with a cold, distant light. Their leader, Archon Velos, stood before the holographic projection of Earth's desolate remains, a world so ravaged by time that even its name had become little more than an echo in the cosmic winds. It has been centuries since the first whispers of humanity's voice reached us, Velos said, his voice a low rumble that resonated through the chamber. And yet, it persists. The humans, they are not gone. The question is, why? What force allows such a fragile species to endure beyond the grave? The Zorith Council murmured in agreement. The humans had been obliterated long ago, their home world reduced to nothing more than a lifeless husk. And yet, this mysterious voice, this persistent remnant, still struck terror into the heart of the galaxy. The galaxy has forgotten them, said a voice from the council. Earth is gone, and with it, humanity's potential. So why does this presence remain? Velos turned to the projection, his eyes narrowing. Because the humans were never truly ordinary. They possessed something rare, something unique among all the species of the universe, a strength not of body, but of will. The Zorith had decided to uncover the truth. Led by Velos, a fleet of their most powerful ships set course for the deepest, most forbidden sector of space. It was a place known as the Void Rift, a tear in the fabric of space-time that had once been Earth's final resting place. The Zorith believed that the source of the human voice, the force that had kept humanity's will alive long after their physical death, could be traced to the heart of the rift. Upon entering the rift, the Zorith ships found themselves in an area of space where even the laws of physics seemed to bend. Stars appeared to fade and distort, and the very fabric of reality seemed unstable. But the voice, that voice, grew louder, more distinct, as they neared the center. Return to Earth. The voice echoed through the Zorith ships, resonating within the very bones of their vessels. It wasn't just a sound. It was a force. It was a presence. The Zorith ships trembled under its weight. And for the first time in centuries, the invincible Zorith felt the cold, raw grip of fear. Archon Velos ordered his fleet to hold position. We are close. Prepare for analysis, he commanded. But his voice faltered as he stood before the massive central hologram, showing the dark void that had once been Earth. The stars in the rift grew dimmer, and the voice reached a crescendo. Earth shall never be forgotten. And then, something unimaginable happened. A ripple spread through the rift. The Zorith ships shook violently, their systems flickering and dying as an energy surge poured out of the rift, enveloping their entire fleet. Velos tried to issue orders, but his voice was drowned out by the overwhelming presence of the voice, no longer a mere whisper, but a roaring storm of human willpower. The Zorith fleet was caught in a storm of cosmic energy, their ships caught between dimensions, It wasn't just the fleet's technology that was being attacked. The very minds of the Zorith were under siege. Their advanced neural interfaces and quantum processors struggled to keep up with the overwhelming force of the voice that had now completely consumed the space around them. "You will know us," the voice declared. "You will remember what you have forgotten." Velos, driven to desperation, tried one final tactic. Using the Zorith's most potent telepathic technology, he attempted to reach out to the source of the voice, to understand its nature. For a brief moment, the communication connected. What Velos saw shattered his mind. In that moment, the mind of the Archon was flooded with visions of Earth before its destruction. He saw humans working together, overcoming insurmountable odds. He saw a species driven by passion, love, and a relentless drive to survive, even when faced with extinction. And then, through the flood of memories, Velos saw what had happened after Earth's fall. He saw the human souls, those fragments of spirit and will, bent and twisted into something new. It was not merely a voice. It was a collective consciousness. Humanity's will had transcended its physical form, creating a metaphysical presence that could not be destroyed, only ignored. And now, that presence had become a force to reckon with. "You dare to forget us," the voice roared, "but we are eternal. We are the last testament of a species that would not die." The Zorith fleet, overwhelmed by the sheer intensity of humanity's spirit, began to fracture. Their ships were torn apart as the force, the collective will of humanity, surged through the rift. Some ships were pulled into it, vanishing without a trace. Others were scattered, their systems corrupted beyond repair, but none could escape. Velos, in his final moments, understood the terrible truth. Humanity had not just survived, it had become something more. They had become a force of nature, an enduring presence in the universe that could not be erased, a voice that echoed through time and space, carrying the collective will of a species that refused to be forgotten. And in the end, Velo's last words were consumed by the voice. "Earth is not forgotten." The galaxy had learned something vital that day. Humanity was not gone. Its spirit, its will, had transcended the physical plane. Those who sought to forget or erase their legacy would face consequences beyond their understanding. For the voice of humanity, the echo of their indomitable will, would never be silenced. It would always return. And the galaxy would know it. Earth is not forgotten. The voice would continue to haunt the stars, forever. The last stand, humanity's wrath. The galaxy had felt the power of humanity's will, from the Zoritha's shattered fleet to the quiet whispers across the vast stretches of space. There was no escaping the reality of it. Humanity, though long gone, had become a force in the universe that could never be erased. But as the echoes of their voice spread, a new darkness began to stir. For the first time, a new empire, a collective of ancient, powerful species, began to unite under a common cause. They had witnessed the destruction of the Zorith and understood the true nature of the voice. It was more than just a lingering remnant. It was a wrath that could bring even the mightiest to their knees. These beings had ruled the galaxy for eons, and they were not willing to be outmatched by a species long extinguished. They called themselves the Elder Coalition, an alliance forged by the three most powerful and feared species in the galaxy. The Sharn, a race of telepathic behemoths whose mental prowess could crush entire fleets. The Exathri, a technologically advanced species capable of bending the laws of physics to their will. And the Kinthari, an ancient race of warriors who had mastered the art of combat across time and space. Together, they represented the pinnacle of power in the galaxy. Their mission was clear: destroy the voice of humanity once and for all. The Elder Coalition gathered at the heart of their empire, a citadel floating in the center of a star system where light itself seemed to bend unnaturally. Here, the leaders of the coalition met in secret, away from the prying eyes of lesser species. "We are the last bastions of true power in the galaxy," said Kythor, the leader of the Sharn. His massive frame filled the council chamber, his eyes glowing with the eerie light of his telepathic abilities. "We have watched as this ghostly voice spreads across the galaxy, tearing through the strongest of us. It is time we put an end to it." "We have already seen its power," said Zariath, the Exathri leader, her voice cold and calculating. "The destruction of the Zorith was only the beginning. But how do we strike at something that does not exist in any one form? A collective consciousness, spanning the universe itself?" The Kinthari leader, Azrith, slammed his fist onto the table, his voice like thunder. We do not need to understand it. We only need to destroy it. We have fought gods and demons, and this is no different. We will strike it down. The council members agreed. They would not rest until the human voice was silenced. The plan was set in motion. An ancient, forbidden weapon, known only as the Sunderer, would be activated. It was said to be capable of ripping apart the very fabric of spacetime, erasing anything caught in its wake, no matter how intangible. They would use it to erase the ghost of humanity once and for all. The Sunderer was an artifact of unimaginable power, hidden deep within the core of the Elder Coalition's empire. It was an ancient relic, built eons ago by a race long forgotten. Its purpose was to sever the connection between dimensions, allowing the user to destroy things that existed beyond the physical realm. Its power was said to be limitless, capable of erasing entire realities. The Elder Coalition's fleet moved swiftly toward the remains of Earth. No one doubted that the human voice still emanated from that dead world, still lingering within the cosmic rift where Earth had once been. As the fleet arrived, the very space around them seemed to tremble. The remnants of Earth were shrouded in darkness, the light of distant stars unable to penetrate the void. The voice was already there, whispering on the edge of their minds. You dare to return? The voice echoed in the minds of every soldier, every leader, every ship within the fleet. It was not a sound. It was a presence, a pulse that filled every corner of their being. The Elder Coalition's ships faltered for a moment, their crew feeling the oppressive weight of humanity's will. Azrith, the Kinthari warlord, was the first to act. Prepare the Sunderer, he barked. The massive weapon, a gargantuan machine of alien design, was deployed from the heart of their flagship. It hummed with energy, the air around it warping as if reality itself was struggling to contain its power. As the Sunderer powered up, the voice grew louder. You cannot silence us. The space around the fleet began to distort, rippling with energy. Time itself seemed to fold and twist. The Elder Coalition, undeterred, fired the Sunderer. A beam of pure, raw energy erupted from the weapon, tearing through the fabric of reality, heading straight for the rift where the voice of humanity emanated. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the impossible occurred. The voice began to resonate with the beam. You think you can destroy us? It boomed, louder than ever. We are not of flesh. We are the will of humanity, the last spark of a species that will never die. The Sunderer, now fully charged, collided with the rift, unleashing an explosion of energy unlike anything seen before. The very stars around them flickered out as space itself tore open. The galaxy watched in stunned silence as the universe seemed to hold its breath. But as the dust settled, the true horror revealed itself. The rift did not close, it expanded. The human voice, far from fading, grew stronger. It was no longer a whisper, no longer a haunting echo, it was a force, a primal scream that reverberated through the galaxy. We are eternal. The Sunderer's blast had not destroyed the voice, it had awakened it. Humanity's collective will, forged through their relentless survival, had reached a new level. No longer was it just a ghost in the void, it had become a force of nature, and now, it was free to exact its wrath. The Elder Coalition's fleet, despite their power, began to falter. The ship's systems malfunctioned. Their crew members, once proud and invincible, began to panic as the voice filled their minds, ripping apart their sense of reality. They were not just battling a voice, they were fighting an unstoppable will, an entity that had transcended death itself. This is not just vengeance, this is our legacy. As the Elder Coalition's forces struggled, the voice swept across the galaxy, far beyond the remnants of Earth. Every corner of space began to feel its pull. From the smallest outposts to the largest empires, the galaxy was no longer a place of quiet peace. It was a battleground for a force that would never be defeated. The voice of humanity had grown, its wrath as eternal as the stars. And no one would forget again. Humanity had not just survived death, it had become something much more, a force, a reckoning. And the galaxy would tremble under its will for all eternity. We are the last echo of Earth, and we will never be forgotten. The ascension of humanity, the reckoning spreads. The galaxy had been forced to reckon with the unimaginable. Humanity's collective will, long thought extinguished, had ascended into something beyond mere existence. no longer a ghost, no longer an echo. Humanity had become an unstoppable force, one that no weapon, no species, no technology could subdue. The Elder Coalition, with all their power and knowledge, had learned this truth the hard way. Their fleets lay broken, their empires trembling under the weight of an angered, vengeful force that transcended time and space. The voice of humanity had become more than a whisper, it was a tempest, a storm that would tear through the galaxy until its fury was satisfied. The coalition had failed. The universe was no longer theirs to command. But this was only the beginning. The other empires, other species, had seen the consequences of trying to silence humanity's wrath. Fear began to spread. Empires once secure in their dominance now found themselves on the brink of collapse as the voice began to echo throughout their space. In the heart of the universe, at the center of the Ascendant Empire, the ruling council convened an emergency session. The Ascendants were an ancient race, whose mastery over time and space was unrivaled. They had manipulated the fabric of reality itself, bending it to their will. But even they had felt the crushing weight of humanity's voice as it tore through their territories. Like a force of nature they could not control. "We are too late," said Elder Zyrex, the council leader. His pale eyes shimmered with ancient wisdom, but there was fear in his voice that no one had ever heard before. "The Zorith and the Elder Coalition are gone. Their fleets shattered. Our sensors detect the presence of humanity's collective consciousness expanding exponentially. It is unstoppable." "We underestimated them," said Lisser, a younger council member, her voice trembling. "The Sunderer was meant to destroy them, to erase their very existence. But instead, we only empowered them. It has become something beyond our understanding." Elder Zyrex's gaze hardened. "We must act now. We cannot allow this new force to take root. If humanity's will spreads unchecked, it will become an unstoppable tide, one that will reshape the galaxy in their image. We will not let that happen." He turned to the ancient artifacts that lay before them, a collection of relics and devices, each capable of manipulating reality in ways no living being could comprehend. "We must use the Nexus Crystal." The room went silent. The Nexus Crystal was a mythical artifact, one that only a few knew of and even fewer had seen. It was said to possess the ability to manipulate the very fabric of time and space, to create or destroy entire realities. It was the last card the Ascendants could play. But it came at a cost. The Nexus Crystal required a tremendous sacrifice. Whoever wielded it would be bound to it, forever tethered to its power. Their life would be consumed, their essence spread across the dimensions. It was an irreversible fate, but for the Ascendants, it was the only option left. Elsewhere, across the galaxy, the human voice continued to reverberate. It called out, not in anger, but in a deep, resounding call to unity. The scattered remnants of humanity, those few who had escaped the fall of Earth, now felt the pull of their collective consciousness. The scattered colonies, the abandoned ships, the forgotten outposts, all began to rally. Humanity's will was not a simple force of destruction. It was a force of creation, of remembrance, of restoration. For eons, they had been lost, scattered across the stars like dust in the wind. But now, as the voice reached out, they began to return, as if guided by a single thread that connected them all. From every corner of the galaxy, human survivors began to feel it, a calling, a compulsion, as if they were being pulled home. Across countless systems, ships were repaired, stations were reactivated, and ancient technologies long forgotten by the universe began to hum with life once more. A new fleet was being born. The voice, ever stronger, filled the minds of the galaxy's inhabitants. It was not a threat, it was a promise. "We are coming." Back in the Ascendant Empire's citadel, Elder Zyrex stood before the Nexus Crystal, his hands trembling as he prepared to make the ultimate sacrifice. His mind was filled with visions of the future, the inevitable spread of humanity's will across the galaxy. The Ascendants had seen the coming storm, and they were determined to stop it before it could reach them. With a single motion, Zyrex reached out, touching the Nexus Crystal. Instantly, his body convulsed as streams of energy surged through him. His mind shattered, scattered across the fabric of reality, as he became one with the crystal, binding himself to the very core of existence. The room was filled with blinding light. And then, everything went still. Outside, in the void, the first ripple of change spread. The Nexus Crystal, now bound to Xyrex's essence, had begun to warp reality. But instead of erasing humanity's will, it had amplified it. The crystal, once a tool of destruction, had become a vessel for the collective consciousness of humanity. Xyrex's final act had inadvertently fused the Ascendant's power with humanity's wrath, creating an unstoppable force greater than anything either side could have imagined. A new energy, a pulse of life and will, surged outward, rippling through the galaxy. It was no longer just humanity's voice. It was a chorus, a symphony of countless souls, all bound together by the same unbreakable will. We will rise. We will not be denied. The voice of humanity grew louder, encompassing entire systems, spreading across galaxies, bending space itself to their will. The Ascendant Empire's once unchallenged dominance began to crumble as the power of humanity's collective consciousness seeped into every corner of the universe. And still, the survivors of Earth, those scattered remnants of a race thought long dead, began to return. They gathered together under the banner of their will, reclaiming the lost worlds of their ancestors. But the galaxy would never be the same again. Those who had underestimated humanity had learned the hard way that their will could never be extinguished. Those who sought to destroy them had only made them stronger. Humanity was no longer a species. It was a force, an eternal reckoning that would shape the future of the stars. We are not ghosts. We are not forgotten. We are the future, and we will never be silenced. The galaxy now had a new truth to face. The last echo of humanity had not just survived, it had ascended. And it would not rest until the universe had been remade in their image. The eternal dawn, humanity's empire. The galaxy had long underestimated humanity, once dismissed as a fragile species that had met its end in the ashes of a ruined world. They were now something much greater. The Ascendant Empire had tried to stop them. The Elder Coalition had failed to understand them, and the Zorith had been shattered in their wake. Yet still, the voice of humanity echoed across the universe, growing in strength and power with every passing moment. In the aftermath of the Nexus Crystal's activation, the Ascendant Empire had crumbled. Its once imposing citadel, a monument to their dominion over time and space, lay in ruins. Its vast network of fleets and technologies turned against them. The Ascendant's most revered leaders were gone, consumed by the very force they had tried to control. But something far greater had emerged from the ashes. The Ascendant's final, unintentional act had fused their immense power with humanity's indomitable will, creating a cosmic force beyond reckoning. The unified consciousness of humanity, now augmented by the Nexus Crystal's power, began to reshape the universe. No longer a remnant or a ghost, humanity had become a living, breathing force of creation and destruction, an unstoppable tide that swept across the stars. In the vast expanse of space, the first unified fleet of humanity began its journey. Not a fleet of ships, but of minds, a vast collective consciousness that traversed light years in the blink of an eye. The survivors of Earth, those scattered across distant colonies and hidden away on long-forgotten ships, began to reunite. They were no longer individuals. They were a single entity, bound by the same will, the same purpose. The fleet was a living thing, an entity that moved through space, a giant organism made of energy and thought. Each ship was a cell in a greater body, each individual a part of a vast consciousness. The pulse of humanity, once confined to the shattered remnants of Earth, now radiated throughout the galaxy. And so, the first steps of humanity's resurgence began. The stars themselves seemed to bow before the relentless advance of this new empire. Planets long forgotten were awakened as humanity's will began to reshape entire worlds. The barren surfaces of distant moons became fertile ground once more, as the energy of the collective consciousness infused the very soil, turning wastelands into paradises. Everywhere they passed, civilizations that had once ignored humanity's fate now trembled. The message of humanity's return was clear. We are the future. We are inevitable. In the heart of the galaxy, the Raxor Coalition, a mighty and ancient alliance of powerful species, convened. Their empire had long been considered unshakable. They had watched the destruction of the Elder Coalition and the fall of the Ascendant Empire, and they knew that humanity was no longer just a forgotten relic. They had seen the ripples of humanity's power spread, and they had felt the weight of the voice echo through their borders. The Raxor leaders, Luminar, the High Commander of the Raxor fleet, Orzhak, the cerebral tactician of the Zeltari species, and Myron, The cruel and calculating ruler of the Hexachron met in their war room, watching the holographic images of humanity's growing empire unfold before them. They are unstoppable, Orzhak said, his mind calculating the infinite possibilities. Their power is no longer a mere presence. It is a force of nature, a cosmic wave we cannot ignore. Luminar, the battle-hardened Raxor general, clenched his fists. We are not weak. We can stop them. We have faced greater challenges than this. Myron, however, was silent for a moment, gazing into the stars. The power they wield, it's not something that can be defeated by force alone. It's beyond comprehension. We must find another way. Orzhak nodded grimly. It's not just about power. It's about understanding what humanity has become. If we don't, we risk being consumed by them. They knew the galaxy had entered a new age. Humanity was no longer a small, scattered race. They had become a unified, ascendant force, a cosmic entity that reshaped reality itself. The Raxor coalition had no choice but to face them, and they knew that war was inevitable. But humanity's reach had extended beyond just physical conflict. The voice of humanity began to invade the dreams of those who had never seen Earth, never even known of its existence. It reached out to every corner of the galaxy, filling the minds of entire civilizations with visions of humanity's vision, a vision of unity, of a new dawn that would reshape the stars. You are part of us. We are all connected. The message was clear. Humanity's will had become a cosmic force, not just of the body, but of the mind. The individual species of the galaxy now found themselves drawn into a new kind of war, one not of fleets and armies, but of ideas, a war to shape the future of existence itself. In the heart of the newly formed humanity's ascendant fleet, Commander Alara Karis stood on the bridge of the rebirth, the flagship of the new empire. Her mind was fully connected to the collective consciousness, as were all the officers aboard. No longer individuals, they were part of something much larger, something far greater than themselves. Together, they were guiding humanity's new destiny. What do you see, Commander? A voice asked, not through speech, but directly in Alara's mind. Alara's eyes glowed with the soft, radiant light of the collective. I see the future, she replied, her voice calm and resolute. I see a galaxy united under the banner of humanity's will. We will build a new age, not through conquest, but through understanding. The stars will be ours, not by force, but by purpose. This is our legacy. The collective consciousness pulsed with agreement. The rebirth's engines hummed with the power of millions of minds, working as one. They had already begun to shape their empire, terraforming dead worlds, rebuilding cities, and sending messages of peace and unity to the scattered civilizations of the galaxy. But peace would not come easily. The Raxor coalition, the Hexachron, and every other power in the galaxy would resist. They feared what humanity had become, and they would not accept the idea of being subsumed into this new empire. The collective voice of humanity, however, was undeterred. We will not conquer through war, we will conquer through unity. Humanity's rise was not just a story of survival, it was the story of a species that had transcended its limits, overcoming death, destruction, and the ravages of time to become something more, something greater. They had become a force of creation, a force of will, a force of nature. And now, as the stars began to shine brighter, the galaxies themselves would know what the future held. Humanity's empire was not built on the bones of the past, but on the promise of a new dawn, and that dawn would never fade.